So Mark is kicking off our year, Mark Durenberger, our star presenter here. And he happens to be a resident of our fair town and runs a company about solar, and he'll tell you everything else you wanted to know.
So let me talk about first why people go solar, because this has been a really big change.
Mm-hmm.
When I started the business, the only customers that I had were environmental. And the primary reason that they were environmentally focused and somewhat well off financially is that solar systems were really expensive.
Yeah.
My very first system went in Acton. It was 12 panels of 200 watts each. So 2,400 watts, single inverter, and it was $24,000. Right, $10 a watt.
Whoa.
Right, and maybe my second system was about like that as well. There were some rebates which made the net cost come down a bit, but it was still $7 or $8 a watt installed. Okay, so the people that wanted to do it were doing it for environmental reasons, not looking for return on investment. And this particular first customer, his break-even time was something like 21 years. Not a great investment if you're looking at this.
Not a good ad, no.
Okay. What's happened? It's completely flipped. 95% of my customers now are doing it for economic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
The 5% that are doing it for environmental are also doing it for economic reasons. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get very, very few people that are just thinking about the environment. Now, with what's happening in the tax code, this may change. This may flip again, or maybe become more balanced. I don't know. Because not only with what's happening in the tax code, what's happening with the climate, people are actually starting to believe it, that it's actually heating up, right? Look at the weather we had, and what is it? It's October 7th, and we had, what, 80 degree days? 80 degrees today?
18.5 degrees above normal.
18.5, that's all.
Wow, that's all.
Yes, that's a lot. What's happened though is the cost of systems have come down dramatically. I can do a solar system now for about $3.50 a watt, roughly. It depends on the system size, but so when we started in 2006, they were $10 a watt, now they're $3.50. And that's without any incentives. Right? Break-even times, if you're in the investor-owned utilities, it's like 6 to 8 years is typical on a decent roof. When I say decent roof, it's got a lot of sun on it, not a lot of shade. Right?
What does that mean, investor-owned utilities? Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's a great question. Investor-owned utilities. So Hudson Light and Power is a municipal utility. It's basically owned by the residents of Hudson, right? National Grid, Eversource, and Unitil in Massachusetts are investor-owned, meaning there's companies you can buy stock in. So the shareholders own National Grid, Eversource, and Unitil, right? One of the downsides to being an investor-owned utility, or as a customer of investor-owned utilities, electricity prices are dramatically higher. We are spoiled here in Hudson. Mm-hmm. Electricity here is about 13 cents a kilowatt hour. Go next door to Marlboro, and it's 34 cents a kilowatt hour. Go up to Acton or Maynard with Eversource, 35 cents a kilowatt hour. So the price of electricity drives what people, when they want to save money, they go, oh, I'm going to reduce my electric bill.
Is Hudson Light and Power non-profit?
Mostly.
Oh.
Mostly. And I'll explain that in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
So even, of course, now, I mean, we were seeing break-even times on Hudson Light and Power about 12 years. But then our illustrious leaders decided to wipe out the solar tax credit. And so now things are going to jump back up to 18 to 25 years. So it's a hard justification when you're looking at it from a financial standpoint. This is what's happening in those same investor-owned utilities for prices of electricity. And this is why the vast majority of solar systems I install are in National Grid, Eversource, and Unitil. I do the occasional municipal utility. I have them in Boylston, West Boylston, Princeton, Shrewsbury, Hudson, Concord, where else? Reading,
Littleton,
Boxborough, Templeton. So there's a bunch of munis around here. There's about 30 municipal utilities in Massachusetts, right? And we've worked in a whole bunch of them sort of east of the Quabbin, none of the ones that are down towards the Cape, but anyways, but they have come with their own challenges. Anyways, if you look at electricity prices at National Grid, Eversource, Unitil for the past 12 years, you see this trend, if you fit a best fit line to that, is 7.7% a year since 2011. So that's like 12 years or 13 years of 7.7%. If you look at the last 5 years, it's the blue line, 10% a year. And if you look at the last 3 years, it's about 17% a year. Right. So for those of us that have a background in physics, we look at a curve like that and we see acceleration. Right. So, and that's what you're seeing with electricity prices, particularly with the investor-owned utilities. Now, let's talk a little bit about Hudson Light Power and why their rates aren't doing the same thing. First off, an investor-owned utility has a different set of regulations than the municipal utilities. In fact, the municipals have a lot more flexibility than the investor-owned utilities. Because they are monopolies, they have to be regulated or they would abuse that power. No corporation ever doesn't abuse their monopoly power, right? So they are only allowed to negotiate 6-month terms for their electricity supply. National Grid, Eversource, and Unitil do not generate electricity. They buy it from somebody and pass it through, no cost markup on the electricity. But they make their money not on the electricity, but on the capital that they build out. So that big power line they just ran from Sudbury to Hudson, that gets what they call rate-based. And it gets built into their delivery charges. And they get a profit on that. And the way the state has set it, National Grid and Eversource can get almost a 9% return on equity on any capital they invest. Which is really maddening because it's a very low risk industry and they have no competition. They should be getting T-bill rate interest rates, not 9% returns. But they get really good returns, right? And in order to get that return, they have to put up higher electricity rates, right? So that's why their rates are so much higher. Hudson Light and Power, on the other hand, I say they're nonprofit or they're close to it. They are allowed to make about a 3% profit. And the only reason for that is so they can borrow money. It's really hard for a nonprofit to borrow money. But a for-profit entity can go and say, hey, we need new trucks. They go to the bank and the bank says, well, you got a good balance sheet, you're making profit, okay, we'll loan you the $100,000 to buy a new truck or whatever, right? And the municipal utilities also, because they're so close to nonprofit, everything that they generate in terms of rates, payments, our electric bills, goes out, right? So they are pretty much break even, a little bit more than break even on what they bill. So when I start making kilowatt hours for electricity, it means I stop buying as much from Hudson Light and Power. Hudson Light and Power, in their ultra-conservative fear mode, starts worrying they're not going to sell enough kilowatt hours to operate the organization. So they're really afraid, it's nonsense, but they are afraid of not selling enough kilowatt hours so they can't run their operation, keep the grid up, and do their maintenance and pay their retirement plans and all that other stuff that they have for operating costs. What they fail to acknowledge is that the usage of electricity continues to rise, and that no matter how much solar we put out, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to offset all of the load that Hudson Light and Power has. So that's where their heads are at. They're worried about losing sales because sales offset operating costs. They don't have any profit built in, so they don't have any fat in their pricing other than that 3% or whatever.
Is that a conflict of interest?
Is what a conflict of interest?
The fact that they don't want to support something that their customers want because it wouldn't make them more profit.
Or it would cut into their operating income. I can't say that it's a conflict of interest because your interests and my interests are different than, and they love to cite that grandmother that lives by herself and gets a big electric bill, right? That's their normal canard. They throw that sort of thing out all the time. But not everybody is solar friendly in Hudson. And so some people are like, oh, I don't care, solar's bad, right? And other people are like, no, it's really good. But in Hudson, you get a good enough of a mix of that they argue that it's in everybody's interest because by preventing or minimizing the amount of solar that deploys, it keeps rates lower.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not buying kilowatt hours, then someone who is might have to pay a little more to make up for what I wasn't buying. The fact of the matter is they don't even notice that what my generation is. Right? Yes?
About maintenance and administration fees. And let's say that my house is producing all of the energy that I consume, maybe even more. Hudson doesn't make any money on me at that point because there's no billing.
Well,
Or is there?
no,
is
it's not that clear. When you produce a kilowatt hour on your roof, if you're using the electricity in your house, that's where it goes. So you're running your dishwasher and it's using kilowatt hours and you're making it on the roof, that's where they're going. But if you make a kilowatt hour on the roof and you don't need it, it goes out to the grid. Now, the way Hudson Light and Power meters electricity, they have a special meter that counts energy going out, separate from energy coming in. The energy that goes out, they pay you the power adjustment charge for it. The energy that comes in, they bill you the retail rate. So they actually do make a little money on every kilowatt hour you give to them, right? Which is kind of criminal.
Now when it gets down to the brass tacks of operating a business or where they need to have a maintenance and they need to have an administrative.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. They want to pay their operating costs. That's fine. No, I'm not. But the way that the way that Hudson Light and Power does net metering is nothing at all the way they do it in Littleton or in Shrewsbury or Princeton or they're all different. But generally they're all better than what Hudson Light and Power's net metering was. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a big factor in selling solar or putting it in not in the munis. Some of the munis have a little bit better rate, a little bit higher rates, so they're more solar friendly. Groton Municipal's lower, Princeton's higher, Shrewsbury's higher, but they all have different rules about how they do it. Like some of them charge you a monthly fee if you have solar. What are they trying to do? Make up for the kilowatt hours you're not buying, right? Littleton does that, Shrewsbury does that.
That makes sense.
Right.
Well, why? If they're not providing me a service, why should
They
I
are
pay
providing
them
a
a
service, so
fee?
you're attached to the grid, you have a transformer.
Yeah, the grid still plays a role in when your solar system is connected.
Yep.
So let's talk about that. So how do they work? So you have your array, we typically call them arrays, but it's a whole bunch of solar panels. Typically they go on a roof, right? We use what's called a microinverter, and that is one of these per panel, and they get mounted underneath the panels, and they take the DC power that the solar panel produces, convert it to AC, 240 volt, which is what your house runs on. You may or may not have a separate production meter. Hudson generally requires an external production meter. Most of the munis don't anymore, or most of the utilities don't anymore. That power, generally speaking, feeds to the breaker panel. That way, if you've got lights running in your house and you're making electricity, that's where it goes. If you're making more electricity than you need, then it goes out through this meter. And if you're in National Grid, that meter just goes backwards. If you're in Hudson Light and Power, it counts what you sent out. Meanwhile, when you bring power back in, it counts what you brought in. So I make electricity for Hudson Light and Power. They pay me, if I don't need it, they pay me 6 cents for it. But then I turn around and buy it back, I pay 13 cents. They just made 7 cents on me. Right?
That's what, do you need a battery, huh?
I have a battery. And so since I've had my battery, I stopped giving Hudson Light and Power electricity because I store it locally.
Yeah.
Like last month, I actually exported 13 kilowatt hours, which is a really low number for me, but not the lowest. And the reason it was 13 is because we had a storm, the battery flipped into emergency mode, and it didn't flip back after the storm.
Oh.
And so the battery was fully charged and it couldn't take any more kilowatt hours. My solar system sent it to the grid. Right? And so I had 13 kilowatt hours go to the grid.
Could you operate continuously just using your panels and your storage system?
Not my house.
How much more storage would you need?
I would need, I only have 15 kilowatt hours of storage. I probably need 45 at least. And part of it is I have electric car, very heavy load, and I have a wood shop with like a 5 horsepower dust collector and a lathe and all sorts of stuff. So we're modest users. As the electric bills I've been seeing lately, my bill is modest in terms of usage compared to many of my customers, but it's still, we use a fair bit of electricity. My wife also has a plug-in hybrid, so between the two of us, we're charging cars all the time. Yes, sir?
I asked 3 electrical engineers how an inverter keeps things in phase with the grid, and none of them could answer.
It's because it's injecting current. It's not keeping it in phase. It's just injecting current into the grid.
It reads the frequency of the grid and
It's not really in phase. It's just
Doesn't it need to be?
it's a current injection. I can't go into the, I don't understand it beyond that, but I know that it's not strictly speaking in phase. It's throwing current in at the appropriate voltage. How it does that, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so the net metering, as I just said, net metering when you're an investor-owned utility, so that's National Grid Eversource utility. When your system makes electricity you don't need, your meter runs backwards, and you earn credits for what you're paying. So if you're paying 34 cents a kilowatt hour and you put it out to the grid, you get a 34-cent credit on your account. Those credits carry forward. The only caveat is if you produce more in a billing cycle than you use, the excess is credited at a slightly reduced amount. Okay, so instead of getting 34 cents, you might get 29 cents if it's in excess of your monthly usage. And I have a lot of customers who will build credits, like in the spring, great time to generate electricity, but you're not using it because you don't need your air conditioner, for example. And then they carry those credits into the summer, and they offset their summer bills with it, right? With Hudson Light and Power, when you have credits, they just credit against your bill right away and until it's used up. And if your credit goes above $50, they send you a check, I think. Maybe it's 100, I can't remember the number. So that's how it works in the rest of the world. In the municipal utilities, it depends on the utility. Export at any time is credited at the power adjustment charge. It's about 6 cents right now. But generation that offsets usage in real time is worth the retail rate, or what, about 13 cents. But this is amazing in comparison to what we see. So I started to say, National Grid has to buy electricity with their contract for 6 months. And then 6 months later, they got to get a new contract. So they suffer the market, and they can't negotiate prices below a certain point. Hudson Light and Power can buy electricity for 25 years. They can go to a provider and say, hey, I'm going to need this many megawatt hours a year for the next 25 years. And if you're a seller of electricity and you say, wow, I could get a customer for 25 years with a guaranteed cash flow, I'll give them a great price, right? So if you're buying electricity for 25 years worth of usage, they'll negotiate. But if you're buying it for 6 months, you don't have as much flexibility. And so that's one of the ways that Hudson Light Power keeps their rates really low.
I think we have bought it, going pretty far out.
Yes, yeah, we have. And then the other thing, Hudson Light Power owns 1% of Seabrook's output. And nuclear power is really cheap once the plant's up and running.
And it's bought that going out, it's quite a distance, I think.
Yeah, they own 1%. The plant won't be retired till 2050, is it? Yeah. They got their license extended by 20 years, so.
Which keeps our rates low.
Right. And on top of all that, because they only service Hudson and Stowe, their service is amazing.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like, for example, when I finish a system in National Grid, I have to have the building inspector out, I have to have the electrical inspector out, the electrical inspector has to call National Grid, tell them it's done, and then National Grid has anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks to swap the meter.
Wow.
When we finish a system in Hudson, the guys call over and say, hey, we're all done. And they go, but we'll be right over. And they literally come over the day we're finishing up and swap the meter for us.
Wow.
It's that good, right? And we've done a bunch of systems between Hudson and Stowe, so we've dealt with that a lot. Right? They have their own quirks. You know, they need a special meter in a certain location. Okay, fine, we handle that, right? Our one-line if it's not in our one-line electrical diagram, they'll kick it back to us and they say, oh, you got to put a meter in. But that's minor stuff. So to answer your question, is Hudson Light and Power solar friendly? Yes and no. Low electric rates make solar less attractive. So at 13 cents a kilowatt hour, 18-year break-even times, people go, it's really hard. I don't know. I'm going to be moving here in 7 years or 10 years or whatever, right? And that's a big factor, is how soon you're going to move, right? Mm-hmm. Their net metering policy, I call it harsh. I think the fact that they only give me 6 cents for exported power within the billing cycle it's criminal. It should be retail.
Yeah.
If I have excess at the end of the billing cycle, sure, pay me 6 cents. But during the billing cycle, if it's going out and coming back in, I should get the retail value for it.
Mark?
Yes.
This is where I have an issue with the way the billing is set up, and that I wish that Hudson would adopt a policy where we were all members of the club and had to pay dues just to be connected, and then if we produce, we're getting compensated for what we produce. If it's green, clean, that it should be going at market.
Yeah, and you're going to start seeing more of that, where the fixed monthly charge is going to go up to cover the operating costs of the organization, and then there'll be the variable part, which will be depending on whether you're producing electricity or not. We're going to see that more and more.
So.
The other thing we're going to see, which I didn't even talk about here, is something called time of use rates, where Groton has already implemented it, and Concord will start at the first of the year. What happens in Groton is their normal rate is like Hudson, 11, 12 cents a kilowatt hour. But from 4 to 8 or 3 to 8, I forget the window, it goes to 55 cents a kilowatt hour, right? Because they really want people to stop using electricity in that afternoon window, because that's the most expensive electricity to generate and buy.
But they have a nice rebate is the next.
Yeah, so Hudson Light and Power has a rebate. It's $1.25 a watt up to $7,500.
What does that mean?
It means that they will give you,
Oh, for installing.
yeah, they will pay you back up to $7,500 towards a system. It still doesn't make the numbers particularly compelling, right? What made the numbers make it work in Hudson was the federal tax credit, the 30% federal tax credit. So I'm not too hard on Hudson Light Power, because the trade-offs are, second lowest electric rate in the state, second only to Groton, service is phenomenal, and I hear the horror stories of National Grid and Eversource customers
Yes.
all the time, because I'm out there talking to these people all the time. Oh, the power was out for a week, 3 days, whatever, right? So what goes into a system? You get PV panels, photovoltaic, that's where PV comes from. They make DC electricity. The brighter the light, the more you get. There's an inverter or inverters. In my case, inverters, one per panel. They convert the DC to AC. They come in all flavors, 240 volt, which is residential, 208, which is typically buildings like this would be 208. Commercial, but not industrial, right? So office buildings are often wired at 208, and then industrial sites are usually wired at 480 volts, right? But solar can integrate with all of those, right? There's racking to hold everything down, and it also serves as a ground. Right, that's all ground.
Can I ask about roof, or is that later?
I have some roof slides, so
Okay.
I'll hold that thought, that's fine. This is a typical system. That's 27 panels, 335 watts per panel, 9,000 watts total. That system will do about 10,800 kilowatt hours a year.
So what did that cost, that system?
That was a while ago, but at today's rates, that would be mid 30,000, give or take.
And with today's code, you're required.
So the code has changed at the end of 2020. What year are we in now? 2020.
5.
And at the end of 2022, I think it was when they changed it. We now have to do a 36-inch path up the roof wherever there are solar panels, and we have to do either an 18-inch gap at the ridge or a 36-inch gap at the ridge, depending on how much roof area you're coverage.
Because?
So supposedly fire departments want to do roof operations. They want to be able to get up there. Right? It's an old fire code that's been common across the country, but Massachusetts has kept it out of the code.
Wow.
And the code predates some really important changes in solar that make working around panels safe. But they implemented the code, and now we have to deal with it.
Another question. I just love having questions. Panels do stand off and they are an obstruction to fire, but what about thin film? And standing seam and other...
So the biggest issue with thin film is the low power density, watts per square foot, and then it's not as robust as the glass plate on panels.
But it can be mounted directly on
If you go down to go out towards the fire training center in Hudson, there's the wildlife preserve, and they have a standing seam metal roof with laminated, very low power per square foot though.
So that's on that training facility?
It's not on the fire training facility. It's at the wildlife
Refuge.
The refuge.
Oh, not on the fenced-in house.
No, behind. If you drive in.
Thank you. Cool.
Yeah. When before the panels are put up, this is what you'll see. You have rails running east-west typically, and then the panel level electronics get mounted on every other rail, and then the panels get wired into those panel level microinverters. On the roof, that you are going to ask, how do we attach?
No.
So these are, we call them, well, they used to be called L feet, but now they look like T's, upside down T's. They used to look like L's. And on the bottom of the plate that mounts to the roof, there's pre-installed a butyl rubber patch. And it's even got a sheet of paper over top of it because they're really sticky. So you peel that off, you put it down, and then you lag bolt it either into the roof decking or all the way through the decking into the rafters. So we can do either setups. But the butyl rubber oozes out and then fills any holes and then seals it. And we haven't had a roof leak in years from this new system. It's pretty amazing. So that's how you hold them up there.
So I don't know how good my roof,
Oh, from a solar perspective.
do I have to get a new roof before? And do I have to take this down if I need a new roof?
So, how old are your shingles now?
I moved in there 12 years ago and I don't know.
And so they were there before you got
Yeah.
there? Okay. So my guideline is if the roof has less than 10 years remaining, then you should do the roof first. All right, don't put solar on old shingles. Why? Because yes, we have to take the system down for you to re-roof and then put it back up, and that's not cheap.
So is your advice really wait till I need to change my roof?
Well, that's how a lot of my customers take it.
Yeah.
They go, okay, I'm not going to do this until it's time to do the roof.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, I don't like that answer, but you know, I have to take that answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally speaking, don't put solar panel. I mean, so let's say I bought a $30,000 system, you know, very rough, a third of that cost to take the system down and put it back up.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you don't want to put solar panels on lousy shingles.
No, right.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad actors in this industry, a lot of sales guys that will want to make a sale at any cost. And just recently this happened. A couple years ago I did a system in Wayland, and I said to the homeowner, he said, well, I got a quote from so-and-so, and I forget the company he got a quote from. I said, what'd they tell you about your roof? No, they told me it was fine. I said, well, I'm going to take a look at it on the way out, because it wasn't part of the main house, it was part of an extension. So I stopped and I looked at it, and I saw broken shingles. I saw tons of stones at the drain pipe, you know, the little stones that come off the shingles. Yeah. I saw the roof was wavy, and after I emailed them the proposal, I said I would not put solar on that roof. Do not do it.
Wow.
That guy was lying to you. That roof needs to be done, right? And I've looked at a lot of roofs over the years. The bad ones are easy to see. Right? They're really easy to see. The medium roofs, it's like, well, it's 19 years old, but it looks really good. And I'm like, yeah, 19 years, it's pretty old, right?
Is that, I don't even know what counts as.
So there are two kinds of shingles you see. The older ones were what were called 3-tab shingles. So there was a tab, a tab, a tab. And each tab is a foot wide, and there would be like a groove between the tabs, right? 3-tab shingles went out with the Dodo. I mean, no, they stopped doing 3-tab shingles commonly, easily 20 years ago. So if I see a house with 3-tab shingles, my immediate thought is that roof's got to go.
Yeah.
Right? The architectural shingles, you know, those are what took over, and they don't have, they look random, more random
They're
than.
nice though.
Yeah, they look nicer, and they tend to be made better than the 3-tab. But even then, you can have 20-year-old 3-tab architectural shingles, and so you got to, you know, they do hold up better. There's a lot of shingles now that have a 40-year warranty. Shingle warranties are largely nonsense. They claim they're 40-year warranties, but good luck getting any compensation from a shingle company. Unless that shingle was installed by a certified, let's say it's CertainTeed. You buy a CertainTeed shingle and it says 40-year warranty. It has to be installed by a certified CertainTeed installer. There has to be inspections in process and afterwards to say, okay, you're qualified for the warranty. Otherwise, they will not honor any kind of replacement warranty. The only time you'll get any money out of a roofing company is when there's a recall, or they get a class action lawsuit and they lost.
Wow.
So,
thank you.
and it's not the roofing company; it's the shingle company.
Oh, good.
Because getting a roofing company, I mean, there are a lot of fly-by-night roofers out there, so you have to be really careful with roofers too. This is a little system we did a long time ago, 2007. I don't think I've done a system this small probably in 15 years. But this was how you got started, right? This is, you know, this was a really neat little house in Jamaica Plain. A single woman, older woman. Every square inch of her yard was growing vegetables. I think she could live off of that little plot of land. It was pretty cool. I really enjoyed it.
They look more raised off of the roof.
At one point, we were using 8-inch pedestals. So these are higher pedestals. The one so aesthetically, they don't look it's nice. But the one thing they did solve was we never had squirrel issues underneath them, because that large gap meant they couldn't do a nest. We do occasionally get squirrels. The rule with squirrels is if they're already living on your roof or running around your roof, then when you put the solar system, they're going to come back. They are territorial. They want their space, and they will chew on wires, and that can be very expensive damage. So we put up what's called a pest guard. So that's if you have squirrels living on your house. A lot of people don't, that's not never an issue, so we rarely do pest guards, but
Really? Huh.
we rarely need to do them. Yeah. But, those houses where it's people, I got squirrels in my attic, all right, you're gonna need pest guards. They don't even hesitate. We can do multiple roofs, especially now with the microinverters. You can see I have panels at 2 different pitches here, a different pitch and different azimuth here. Like these are facing southwest, those are facing southeast. All right.
That's a home? That's a home?
That's a house.
That's a
So-
lot of PVs.
Yeah, that's a lot of panels. It's a pretty good size system.
It's
11 kilowatt system, 11,772 watts. It's pretty good size.
On Birch Hill?
No, I don't think so. I do have some systems on Birch Hill.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking the contemporary with the angle.
And then if you don't have a roof, we do ground mounts. We don't do too many of these, but we do occasionally. And this is the guy, his house was east-west, so we put it in the backyard facing due south, and it dramatically improves the performance when it faces south. And then there's funky roofs like that house in Worcester with, 4 different roof planes. Or this house in Harvard where we have some panels facing southwest, some southeast, and then these are solar hot water panels.
Do they know you're putting their houses up there as funky?
Well, I know for a fact that the guy that bought this system doesn't live there anymore because he was my CEO for a while of my company. So he now lives in Vermont. And then this is what a flat roof would look like. This is in Fitchburg. This is a pretty good size commercial. It's about 238 kilowatts, 286,000 kilowatt-hours a year.
And those are tilted.
Tilted 5 degrees, 5 to 10 degrees. Depends on the rack. I don't remember which rack we used on that one. It's all held down with ballast. These are all 40-pound ballast blocks. There are very few holes. Very few holes. We have to do a few for wire, conduit.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, we try not to do any holes in rubber roofs.
Wow.
So you use ballast. But the roof has to be able to handle the weight. So the trade-off is if you make the panels steeper, they become more of a sail, and therefore you have to use more weight. So the trade-off is we'll do them a little lower pitch. You won't get perfect production, but you don't have to use as much weight to hold the panels down. So, and this is typically 5 or 6 pounds per square foot when we're doing it on a array like that.
I'm sorry, as much weight to hold them down?
Well, if they're tilted on a flat roof, you need more ballast because of the sail effect, the wind coming at the back.
Okay.
If you put them down lower,
Wow.
there's less of a wind uplift,
Okay.
and so you use less weight.
Okay.
Productive solar arrays, clear from 9 to 3, ideally. Tilt really doesn't matter too much, 10 to 45 degrees. A good roof, you get 1,000 watts of solar. 2 of my 460 watt panels get you pretty close. Will give you 1,200 kilowatt hours of electricity in a year. And then if you started looking at heading, this is 180 is due south. 100% roof is 9 pitch. Right? Don't fall. And then as you move off of south, so this is 235 somewhere. This is like southwest, southeast is over here, and then you have your 12 pitch roof and your 11 pitch and 10 pitch. Right. So this is the sweet spot. When I first started the business, unless your roof was like this, I wouldn't even go out. I'd look at it on Google Earth and I'd say the numbers aren't going to make any sense. Nowadays, I've done panels on north sides of houses because in a low pitch north roof actually can work okay, particularly northeast. It's a little bit better than northwest, but you get enough generation to justify the cost.
Do you usually tell people to please cut down their trees?
Trees sometimes is effective, yeah. We do talk about trees. The tax credits, so there was a 30% tax credit, it got wiped out with the big beautiful bill. And so normally he signed that July 4th. Normally by July, my business is sold into September. We have enough work to keep us balanced in September. By the end of July, we'd sold out the whole year because everybody wants their 30%. So we got to get the system installed, paid for, operational by the end of the year for them to get their tax credits. The commercial tax credit is still there, but you have to start construction this year. Even if it's only 5%, but to keep that tax credit, and you have 3 years to finish the job. There is still a personal tax credit, it's 15%, but it's capped at $1,000.
Wow.
We in the industry are trying to uncap that, but with the crap that's happening to Medicaid, the state is going to be really tight on financials, and so we don't see any solar incentives coming where the state's going to need every penny to supplement the Medicaid cuts that are coming. So there is a smart incentive in National Grid. An Eversource Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target, I call it an Orwellian name. You get it, right? War is peace, love is hate. Orwellian. Smart is not very smart.
No.
But basically what you're doing, you're getting paid for the green value of your electricity along with the electricity savings. It's only about 3 cents a kilowatt hour, so it's not a big number, but it helps. Right? The cost of systems, the major variable size. The more panels, the more expensive, right? If it's a roof system, it's generally less expensive than a ground system of the same size. Who makes the panels? There's some variation in panel manufacturers and price. You get the tax credit, you get rebates in some of the utilities, you save on your electric bill. You get zero carbon. It takes about 2 years for a solar panel to offset its own carbon footprint.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, no, it's not bad at all. And with the typical warranty on a solar panel is 25 years. Expected life is 40 to 50 years. System cost, $3.50 to $4 per watt is pretty common for a solar system nowadays. 5,000 to 15,000 watt system sizes, those are pretty common, right? Bigger systems tend to be a little bit less expensive on a per watt basis because you've got fixed costs distributed over a larger system. Yeah. So we categorize solar. There's residential. That's homeowners, right? Commercial. If you go through Acton and go to Gould's Plaza, there's a big solar array on Gould's Plaza. That's a commercial system. We did that a long time ago, right? And then there are, the commercial systems will be small, 30 to 250 kilowatts, and large, 250 kilowatts to a megawatt. And then the solar farms tend to be a megawatt or up, usually 3, 4, 5 megawatts worth of solar, right? So these are big solar farms. And then these are small compared to what they're building in China right now.
What did I forget?
Did I forget anything? Yeah, that's my last slide.
Yes, perfect, perfect. I see articles in German things that I read about, balcony.
Oh yes, these are really become all the rage.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, I think if anything, for me, that'll be good for business because people will say, "Wow, this is great having this one solar panel. I should get more."
Yeah.
Right? But it's particularly good for people who live in apartments.
Yeah.
Or they have really small loads. I love them. My son does that. He has a couple of solar panels, and he just supplements his usage with those couple of solar panels. We're moving him to Salem next week, and he's got the back deck faces west.
Oh, yeah?
So he'll put the panels hanging from the railing on the deck.
How much is it percentage-wise of his whole usage? About.
If I had to guess, he's probably going to make, he might use 300 kilowatt hours a month. He might make 20 off of the deck, right? So not a big percentage.
So is it a feel-good thing?
For him, he's into the tech,
Yeah.
and
That's
it's
6%.
yeah, it's a small chunk for him. Right? He has a heat pump, so his electric load's pretty high. So.
Yeah, but what about
Right.
batteries?
Okay. So batteries are an up-and-coming thing. We've been doing them now 5 or 6 years, but we're starting to put them in about 20 to 30% of our systems. Primarily nowadays, people use them for emergency backup. It's better than a generator in that you don't have to feed it fossil fuel. It's quiet. It's no moving parts. All that stuff, right? But you typically don't have enough to run your whole house for an extended period. A whole house generator, clearly you can run the whole house. So like my battery is 15 kilowatt hours. If I shut everything down, and don't do anything like take a shower, because my water heater would draw power from it, or run my lathe, which is a pretty high power device, then I would be using a lot of electricity. So when the power goes out, which is rare in Hudson, my son and I like to walk around and unplug stuff that might be phantom loads, whatever we can to turn off, right? And then the other thing where batteries are going to start making a huge dent, Groton, for example, has these time of use rates. So I want one customer that charges the battery all day off their solar, and then when the time of use rate kicks in, the battery automatically switches to support the house. And so it does as much as it can to offset the expense of electricity.
Wow. Okay.
So they're shifting the sun, they're extending their solar day and using the battery to offset the higher electric rates at the time of use rates.
And the utility company supports that.
They can't really not support it.
Otherwise, you get another battery and get completely off the
Right
grid.
now, I know they're.
A typical, I just quoted a battery for a customer in Acton, 10 kilowatt hours, was like $22,000 installed.
A battery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're still a little bit expensive.
I'm sorry, how much was it?
22,000, give or take. That's electrician labor, materials, permits, all that good stuff. Right?
Alright.
Sometimes we have to put them. So generally speaking, we try to put them in the garage because it's easy to get them permitted in the garage.
Okay.
But some people want them in the basement, and when we put them in the basement, they have to go into a finished space,
Okay.
which means you have to build usually a closet. And and some towns want it with a fire door, some towns don't care.
Are there ways for either small towns or clusters of houses to put up a solar field or whatever you call it?
Yeah, so there's a co-housing in Acton called Half Moon Hill.
Yeah, Newview.
Yeah, at Newview, and they've done a lot of common area type
Common stuff?
generation. Yeah,
Yeah.
And they just put in a parking lot canopy. We did a bunch of the houses in Newview.
Yeah.
And then they also have power on the common house. They haven't quite gotten to the point of microgrid, but that's coming, where you buy a battery that's the size of a tractor trailer, and you basically disconnect from the grid completely,
Right.
Yeah.
and you just live off of what your sun can generate and what your batteries can store. Right?
Thank you very much
Oh, you're welcome.
for coming down from Salem.